Hi, everybody. I'm Dee Lisa, the Dream Doula for Women, and I help people remember the power of their dreams so that they can weave it into their day to day waking life. And today we have Nancy Norbeck. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I am Nancy Norbeck. I am a creativity coach and I host the Follow Your Curiosity podcast. And I help women who are held back by their inner critic to free their playful creative spirit by making bad art.
I love it so much. I'm also an artist,
Yeah.
and so many people are so self critical, and they're like, I'm not an
Hmm.
artist. I can't do that. I started teaching some creativity classes in my studio where I said to the students, listen, we're going to make some marks today. And when we're done with the 2 hours, we're going to throw it away. And when I first said that, I thought they were going to go, oh, wait, no, what? I said, we're not making a masterpiece. We're going to throw it away. And they looked so happy. They're like,
Yeah.
really? I said, if you love it, you can take a picture first. But no, that's not what we're doing today. We're just getting into that creative zone. So, how do you help people get into that creative zone?
I literally have them make bad art, whatever kind of bad art that might be. It doesn't have to be any kind of specific thing. It can be paintbrushes and canvases. It can be words on the page. It can be folding up paper. I mean, I've literally told people, look, because I had somebody ask me one time, well, what if I don't make bad art right? And yeah, I didn't laugh at her, but I was kind of blown away by the question. And then I remembered, oh, right, you're a perfectionist. This is a perfectly logical question for you because perfectionists always think that there's a right way to do something. And I said, look, if the only thing that you do is take a paper clip and a corner of a piece of notebook paper and play with it for 5 minutes to try to make something bad out of it, you will have succeeded. Like this is not rocket science. There is no wrong way to make bad art. As long as you are trying something new with no expectation of, as you said, making a masterpiece, you're doing it right. It can be whatever medium you want. You can be making up songs while you're making dinner. It could be the dinner you're making. It doesn't matter. As long as you are experimenting with something with the intention that it doesn't have to be good,
Yeah.
you're doing it
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I love that. So what if I make bad art wrong?
I know. I know.
Oh,
And yet we've
oh,
taught people that there's a right way to do everything. And, that saying, anything worth doing is worth doing well. Well, not
yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah. Well, I had some people come through my art studio the other day and they had a couple of kids. One of them, they said, he's very self-critical. And I said, how old is he? And they said 7.
Hmm.
That's pretty much the age people get that self-critical reality that what they're doing is maybe wrong or what the art they made isn't right. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we think of kids as, at least I used to think of kids as always being totally free to do whatever they want. And up to a certain age, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I have two nephews, 9 and 12 right now. And the 12-year-old, back when he was 4, told us this amazing story about the noise in the radiators in their house before they had someone come and bleed them and fix them and all of that because they were making an unholy racket over Thanksgiving weekend. And he had alligators in the pipes and sharks in the pipes
Love
and
it.
all sorts of stuff going on. And he went on for at least a good 3 minutes. And I have some of this on video and I actually show it in my course because it's just nonstop. There is nothing getting in his way. Whatever is popping into his head is coming out of this 4-year-old's mouth because that is how 4-year-olds work, right? 2 years later at Christmas, I watched this same child have a perfectionistic fit because he was trying to draw the Mickey Mouse Christmas train that he got for Christmas and it wasn't good enough. So in
Mm.
those 2 years, something shifted. And I remember sitting there watching him and thinking, oh, you poor kid. I totally get it. I have felt exactly how you feel. And I wish that I could explain to you at age 6 that the sooner you let this go, the happier you're going to be. But
Oh,
there's
no.
no way to explain that to a 6-year-old. Fortunately, now at age 12, he's fascinated because I asked him if he was okay with me showing this video to my class. and and he wanted to know why, you know. And his comment was, adults are so silly. They forget that it's okay to be awkward and make mistakes.
Oh, good.
He's a very deep 12-year-old. I'm not quite sure where
Oh,
we got him, but he's a very deep kid.
ah, that's so beautiful. That reminds me of a 4-year-old question I got from one of my daughters where she said, Mommy, which is real, when you're dreaming or when you're awake?
Ooh,
That is such a deep question
it
that you
is.
could ask any mystic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I said, What do you think, honey? And she said, Oh, I think they're both real.
It's as
I
good an
kept
answer as any.
totally, totally. And I have been in grade school helping at the after school program where the parent was helping with the art, but she wasn't an artist. And she was yelling at the kids and telling them they're using the wrong color for the sky or the apple or the sun. And in my mind, I'm like, whoa, stop, stop the bus. What do you, this is how kids get shut down.
Right.
They go to a school or they get some guidance for in an artistic endeavor from someone who's not artistic and wants them to make it their way.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that is not how making art should be for any age, include especially children.
This is how you get adults who think they can make bad art the wrong way.
Right, exactly.
It's exactly
Exactly.
it.
Now, how did you get into this beautiful field?
I That's potentially a long story, but to try to shorten it a little bit, I taught English as a second language for 6 years at a private school, and I did all the writing classes for that, and they made me the advisor for the literary magazine. And while I was doing that, I was also starting my own writing again. I had always written in high school and some in college, and then it had kind of fallen by the wayside, and I got back into that. And I really wanted to teach a creative writing course because there was no feeder for this literary magazine. They wouldn't let me do that. And I was like, but why? Um, and so I decided to go get my MFA in creative writing, in part because I thought maybe if I come back with a shiny new degree that they've paid for, they'll let me teach this course. And then the recession hit, and teaching jobs, just, especially in private schools, were not protected. So that
Mhm.
was the end of me and my teaching job. And shortly after that, after I got a job doing copy editing and proofreading after I got my degree, I stumbled onto Kaizen-Muse creativity coaching, which is the model that I'm trained in. And it was one of those things where as soon as I saw the website, I was like, "Oh, I think I found my people." And I played the
Yeah,
game with myself where I said, I'm going to take a week to see if this is really what I want to do, even though I knew the minute I saw it that was what I wanted to do. so, so I signed up for it. And it was the most fascinating program I've probably ever taken. All of the nitty gritty stuff about how the creative process works, which, everybody thinks that their creative process and their creative blocks are different and unique and weird and whatever. They're not. Everybody has the same blocks. Your block is not any stranger than anybody else's, and there's a way around your block, and somebody like me knows how to get you around that block.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
I love that.
And
And
so
most, don't you think that most, sorry to interrupt you,
it's
do
okay.
you think that most people's creative block is really about, I'm not good enough, so my art's not good enough?
It's a big one. I mean, there's lots of things that go into creative blocks. There's a lot of
Hmm.
fear. There's always the good old standby self-sabotage. But,
Sure.
a lot of it is I'm not good enough, and that's a lot of what fuels perfectionism. And, perfectionism is really what Make Bad Art is about.
I
Perfectionism
love
is
that.
is gets into, the self-judgment and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
that's really what I want to root out because there's too much of that in the world. We don't need to be so perfectionistic, and we certainly don't need to be so mean to ourselves.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I was actually having a dream. Since I just teach people about dreams, I'll share this dream, a snip. But in this dream, I was asking a group of artists um, that were new artists to this atelier from my old art teacher. And I said, who started their first painting? And like half of them raised up their hand. And I said, who hasn't? And the other half were like, yeah. And I said, why not? And one said to me, because I'm doing a portrait and the hair is really curly and I want the hair to be perfect. So it's exact, I mean, my dream man message is exactly what you teach to get around. Uh, he wanted it to be perfect, so he didn't even begin.
Right. Right. And that is the form of perfectionism that most people do not recognize.
Yeah.
We recognize the people who won't let it go because they have to fix it and fix it and fix it and fix it,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know? But we do not recognize, and this is literally what happened to me during coach training. They set each of us up with a coach training mentor. And I had my call when we were learning about perfectionism. And she said to me, "So, are you a perfectionist?" And I said, "Nope, nope, not me." Because that's not the kind of thing, I mean, I had this image in my head. And I mean, I taught with a guy who was an artist and shared a classroom with him, and he was the kind of guy who had, his stapler was always lined up the right way, all that stuff. And I was terrified when I used his room that I was going to, leave that stapler at a slight angle on his desk and it wasn't going to be right, right? That's the kind of image that I had in my head of what perfectionism looked like. And I was like, no, that's not me, right? And she said, are you sure? Like, do you have to like make sure you have all the right tools before you start? Do have do it all the right way? And I said, nope, that is not me. All I need is a pen and a notebook and I'm fine. And then she said, are there things that you don't even start because you know that they won't be good enough when you do them? And I just went, okay, I think you got me. I guess I'm a perfectionist because, yeah, yeah, there are plenty of things that I just haven't even bothered with because I just know they're not going to be good enough. And
And some
that's the
people would
insidious
call
part.
those procrastinations, but it's so interesting that you're making the distinction
Hmm.
that if you procrastinate because it won't be good enough, you're a perfectionist.
Well, and it's interesting because like procrastination and perfectionism can overlap so much,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
this is not even like procrastination is eventually you're going to get to it, but the perfectionistic side is I'm not even going to do that. I'm not even going to try that because I know I will never be able to do that well enough, so why should I bother?
Yeah.
And it's a terrible thing to do to yourself, right? Because it might be something that you would enjoy doing even if you're not going to do it particularly well. So what? So what if it's not great? If you're going to enjoy it, it's worth doing it for the enjoyment of that experience, right? Everybody knows that person who does the karaoke even though they're not good at it, but they
Yes.
love doing it, right?
Yes.
We may not love listening to it, but they love doing it. And when you say to yourself, "Oh, no, I would love doing it, but I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to be any good at it," you're cutting yourself off from that experience. Now, admittedly, if you know that people might laugh at you for it, there is a self-protective element there potentially.
Hmm.
But if it's something that isn't that big a deal, if it's not great, why not take the chance and do it anyway and have fun with it? And who cares what the result is? If nobody's getting hurt and you're having fun, do it anyway.
I love that. That's probably why, and I'm not really a fan of this, but I know a lot of people love doing it. Those sip and draws or drink and draws. So they get a
Mm.
little bit drunk and then they make something. It loosens their inhibitions, and they are all making, in my opinion, a really bad painting. And then they take them home and put them on their wall or so. I don't know. They're like, I had so much fun. We did this thing and we painted a landscape. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. But all of those people in that group, I would say, without exception, had fun.
And they probably got a great story out of it that they're going to tell with those friends
Yeah.
and, laugh themselves silly over it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
painting doesn't even matter. It's the experience that they had.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you take people through your creativity coaching, um, how do you unlock their creativity? Do you have you tell them it doesn't matter what they do, but you probably give them exercises to try.
So I have this 6-week course called Make Bad Art.
Okay.
And in the course, yeah, we go through a whole variety of different exercises and kind of prompts. I give
Hmm.
them some
Hmm.
ideas to play with every week. And I also, raise their awareness of different parts of how the creative process works, how your brain works. You know, these are things you may not have been aware of that you can use to your advantage because your brain is always doing these things. You
Hmm.
know, and so like just as one example, one of my favorite tools is a small question. And the way that you use a small question is that you just ask yourself the question a couple of times a day without looking for an answer.
Ooh.
Because your brain cannot handle an unanswered question. It will keep churning on that question, even though you yourself have gone back to the book you're reading, the report you're writing, the TV show you're watching, whatever it is, you're grocery shopping. Your conscious mind is focused on that, but your subconscious mind, because you keep asking it this same annoying, niggling question, is continuing to chew on it. And eventually it's going to pop up an answer. Or, you may just start doing something different depending on what kind of question you asked in response to that. So, like, if you're just asking, how can I make this more fun? You may subconsciously start reacting to that question and notice, this isn't bothering me so much. What have I done differently? Because you may be doing it without even realizing you're doing it because your subconscious mind is at work. And
I
you
love
don't
that.
have to do anything to make it happen consciously because we have this subconscious brain that we can just set. I mean, you don't want to overdo it. I wouldn't do more than one at a time.
I
But
think it's interesting that you're putting your subconscious mind to work. So you don't have to think about it, it's subconscious. And you're asking it a question. That's one of the hacks that I teach people with affirmations. So if you're saying an affirmation and you really don't believe it, you can turn it into a what if question. And your brain will start thinking of ways that it could happen.
mm-hmm,
Same thing.
yeah.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, questions are wild, powerful things. We tend to think that everything that's important about a question is in the answer, but that's not true.
Mm.
The question is where all the
Ooh, say
important
that
stuff
again.
is.
That is so good. So we think that the answer is what we're looking for, but
Hmm.
perhaps it's the
It's the
question.
question. The question is the really important part. The answer is dependent on what kind of question you're asking in the first place. So the
Yes. Say
question is
more.
where the power is, right? It's kind of like if you want to go somewhere, you have your car, right? You think the car is the important part of getting somewhere. But if you don't know where to point the car is not going to do much for you. You have to have the map that tells you where you're going to go, and you have to know how to use the map. And so I'm making up this analogy, so I hope this makes sense because I hadn't thought about this before, but it's kind of like, the map is your brain And the question is giving the direction to your brain. The question is telling your brain, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to, how I want to think about getting there, figure out how to get there. The question is the input that lets your brain get you where you want to go. And then you can, take that and figure out, okay, now I've got the map. I have to apply the question to the map to get me to my destination.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Do you find that people are attracted to you because they also like to write words like you do?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I've had artists and anthropologists and all sorts of people take my course.
Hmm.
So, it really depends on, not exactly sure. I think they just vibe with me for whatever particular reason they connect.
Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously you could tune this to a specific um, artistic endeavor like
Hmm.
songwriting or playwriting or novel writing or painting or drawing, but you're including all creative pursuits. And so that allows everyone to come in with what they love to do. Do you also suggest that if you love to do this one thing, like say you're a knitter, why don't we like open up your mind and try this other thing?
It's interesting you say that because I just had someone in the course who, and I'm so glad she did this because so many people would be afraid to do what she did. She sent me an email a couple days into the first week, and she said, I need help. I don't know how to make bad art. And I don't mean that to say that everything that I make is good. I just don't know how to do what you want us to do.
Right?
And I thought, oh, God bless you. Yes, you do. You just don't realize that you do. So we hopped on Zoom for 20 minutes and we talked because she had been doing all sorts of painting and visual art forever. And I said, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure you do know how to do this, but you've been doing what you've been doing for so long that it's really hard to get your brain to think of it in a different way. So, what I'm going to suggest is that you do something completely different. Why don't you play with words instead? And you can do something as simple as write a bad haiku, like break all the haiku rules. Write it about technology instead of nature. Write the wrong number of syllables. Do whatever you want with it. But write a bad haiku or short poem or something every day and play with that for a little while and see how that goes. And she has turned into a poet.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So she now, just she told me that she wakes up in the morning with words in her head and hopes that
Mm,
she can keep them there long enough to get to her notebook to write them down, which
I
is when I
love
said, I,
that.
I think you should keep your notebook next to your bed.
Oh yeah.
You know?
If you're rushing through the house to find the notebook to get the words out, they
Yeah,
should be right next to your
just
pillow.
eliminate the walk. Just keep the notebook right there. But
Oh,
but
that's so
yeah.
beautiful.
So now she's a visual artist and a poet.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I used to be in a group of artists in Seattle that started out, they called themselves the Art Chicks. And they started out a group of people who were mostly photographers. And they said, we're going to bring something to the group every month that's not in our specialty. So if you're a photographer, make a poem or bring a song or paint a painting. And if you're a painter, do the opposite. And when I joined, it was just kind of like do whatever you want to. But it was so fascinating that each one of us had the same word or phrase prompt. And there was a theme that ran through everybody's work, but everyone brought something so unique and interesting. And we didn't try to make it perfect, and we brought it if we thought it was bad, but we weren't allowed to talk about if it was bad. We just showed it.
That's a
So
critical thing.
no complaints, can't complain,
Yep.
can't apologize. Just what did you make? And what was it like to make it?
Yeah. because the making is the important part.
Yes. And I think people, especially perfectionist types, even the ones that aren't, when you're making something that you think you're going to show to someone, eek.
Yeah, you get caught up in your head, and
Yep.
that's not where you want to be when you're making anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you take people so far that they can imagine that they're not even making it, that they're channeling it somehow?
No one has told me that yet. Though,
Hmm.
well, actually, now that I think about it, the woman that I just told you about has mentioned a couple of times that she has no idea where the words are coming from. So she hasn't put it that specific way, but I would bet that it's close, if
Yeah.
not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think many creatives, when they get into that they get into the flow of creativity, which I believe everyone can tap into. It's like
Hmm.
we can breathe, we can tap into our intuition, we can tap into our creativity. When you're tapped in, it doesn't seem like you're making it. It seems like it's making itself.
Yeah. And I've had that experience a couple of times, and it is wild when it happens.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine in Seattle who's in his 80s now, I think. He's taught um, art at the University of Washington for many years. And he said at an art opening when he's talking about his art, he said, you know, you're in the zone, meaning the creativity zone, when you take a break for lunch and you see that it's 8 p.m.
Yeah.
You just lose all sense of time and space. You're
Hmm.
just in making it.
And you
Yeah.
cannot end up in that zone if you are stuck in your head.
Yes. Yes.
If you're critiquing every single thing that you do, you are not going to get there.
Mm, that is so beautiful. Wow. So how do you do this for yourself, Nancy?
It's the same
How
thing
do you
for
make
me.
bad stuff?
You just honestly, you know, it sounds so simple, and I think I kind of wonder sometimes if people think that it sounds too simple
Mm,
to be true, but honestly, you just have fun with it. You just play. You know, I mean, it's what you did when you were a kid. That 4-year-old, when my nephew was 4 and was going on about the alligators and the snakes, part of the reason he could go on for 3 or 4 minutes is that he was not judging a single thing that was popping into his head. He was
sure.
just having fun telling a story. And the hilarious thing is that at the end of the video, he looked at one of the adults in the room and said, "Now you tell a story about the pipes." And I think every single one of us stood there was like, "Yeah, we can't do that like you just did." Because
Uh,
we would have been judging every single thing we said to make sure that it made sense, which is
yeah.
what he wasn't doing.
Yeah.
So it's just, in that moment of fun and play, and who cares if it makes sense? And that's what makes it hard for adults because we are so trained out of that. But it doesn't mean we can't get it back. It just takes the willingness to say, okay, I'm going to do this goofy thing. I mean, I made a very short video. What were the Oscars? Just like a week ago, in honor of the Oscars. I sat down and I did the thing that I talked about earlier. I didn't have a paper clip handy, so I grabbed a tie wrap and a scrap of paper and I made the Make Bad Art Creative Courage Award and I held it up on the video and I've posted it on YouTube. It's just a twisted piece of paper with a tie wrap twisted around it. It is nothing special, and that's the point. It's ridiculous and silly and fun. And so what if somebody thinks that's stupid? I could have done that in 2 minutes. Yeah, it didn't even take me 2 minutes. It probably took me 40 seconds. But that's the point, is to be able to just say, I'm just going to make this silly thing and it's going to be the award for creative courage, because that's all it takes is the willingness to sit down and say, this is what I have and I'm going to make something silly and ridiculous out of it. And who cares what anybody else thinks? That's it. But it
Love it.
it sounds so easy, but the hard part is getting past all of your internal barriers to doing it. That's what makes it
Right.
hard.
Uh, yeah, you think you have to go get the art supplies, and then you have to have the right paper. And then what about the clip? A different kind of clip? Should I sew it? Should I weave it? Should I put words on it first?
And the biggest one of all, what's everybody else going to think of it?
Yeah.
Who cares what anybody thinks of it? I don't care. I
Well,
put it on YouTube,
that's a
and I'm
big
sure
thing.
people think it was stupid, and I don't care.
Well, I was supposed to make bad art. You don't like it? Cool. I
Yeah,
succeeded.
right, right.
Do you have people show you what they made
If they want
in the
to,
course? But they don't have to.
they don't have to.
I bet some of them are kind of proud of their bad art, though.
Yeah, because for some of them, especially that first instance of making something bad, really frees them up because they haven't ever had permission to do it before.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Are you familiar with the artist Linda Berry?
No.
Oh, I highly recommend. It's spelled Lynda, Linda Berry. She teaches creativity at University of Wisconsin. Oh my God, I should know what. Anyway, she got a Guggenheim Award a couple years ago. And when I knew about her first, she was a cartoonist and had a syndicated column. And I believe she lived in Seattle at one point, which is where I'm from. But she has a couple of books that she wrote. And in one of the books is like, what makes a bad drawing? She ponders that with her students because what she teaches is she teaches a graduate level course in creativity, um, University of Wisconsin, Madison, I think is where. And she doesn't only let art majors get into her class. She wants a whole plethora of people. She wants the doctors, she wants the lawyers, she wants the science geeks, she wants the kid that stopped drawing when they were a little tyke,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids that have been drawing for a long time. And she starts them out with creativity exercises like um, we have 30 seconds to draw this thing, like draw Batman, draw a car, draw yourself surfing with a shark, uh, and then even further than there, I think she teaches them eventually how to do comics if they want to. But her ponderings about creativity and is it good or is it bad? Who says it's good or bad?
Right, right. It's so subjective. And
Yeah,
the 30 seconds thing is great because if you don't have much time, you don't have time to get in your own way.
yeah. And I've done that exercise with some adults, and it's very fun. Like they're like, no, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
No, oh, that was really fun. Because, yeah, how wouldn't it be fun?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Other ways to kind of get yourself out of your brain is to use your non-dominant hand. Do you have people do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. And you know, the last time or the most enlightening time I ever did that one myself, I can't even remember now what it was for, but I drew a self-portrait with my left
Hmm.
hand.
Nice.
And I remember going into it and thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be good." You know, it's like it's gonna look like something drawn by like drunken spiders or something. And what I ended up with was shockingly good. I mean, it's not going to go on a museum wall, but like when I was teaching, I drew stick figures, right? My brother is the architect. He got all of the visual art genes and I got the writing genes. We're both into music, you know, but he definitely is the visual art guy. I drew stick figures, some of them with exploding heads, thanks to one of my students who thought they should have exploding heads. And I drew this thing that actually, you know, it was not me as a stick figure, you know? I mean, the fingers on the hands were pretty iffy, but you know, I had eyes and hair and, you know, clothes and stuff and it you could recognize that it was me. And I just sat there staring at it going, how in the heck did that happen? And when the shock of it had worn off the next day and my creativity coach brain could kick in, I thought, Oh, I know what it was. I expected it to be terrible. And so my expectations were so low. I mean, they were like below the ground. The bar was well below the surface level. And so as a result, I got out of my own way, even with my left hand. And here's this thing. So what do you know? And that's a huge thing too. When you lower your expectations, magical stuff happens. It's when you build your expectations up, which is where you get in trouble with all of these, we have very high expectations for you. Well, good luck then. It gets in your way because now your inner critic is primed to come out and just absolutely savage whatever you do. But when your expectations are below the ground, you don't have much to worry about. And so you're free to do something much better than you expect.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the non-dominant hand takes you to that space.
Mhm.
Closing your eyes or not looking at the paper
You do that
also
too.
takes you to that space. Um, I've done any artist listening would go, yeah, I've done that exercise where you're looking at something, but you're drawing on the page, but you can't look at the paper,
Mhm.
or you're looking at the paper, but you can't lift the pencil or pen up. You have to do a continuous line. To take that even further, I did something that was super fun last year where I did a self-portrait with my eyes closed. So I can't even see where I am on the
Mhm.
paper. So the paper's in front of me on the wall, my eyes are closed, I'm touching my face and I'm drawing on the wall, and then I open my eyes, I'm like, "Oh, wow." And then I did it sort of over and over itself several times, and it turned into something really kind of oddly beautiful, but not what I expected. So
Mhm.
the expectations were I hope I stay on the paper instead of drawing on the wall, right? And
Right.
and then when I was like, "Oh, there's an eyeball in there somewhere and it kind of looks like a nose, but the nose is off the face."
Mhm.
That kind of exercise is really fun to do. I mean, that really pulls people out of their expectations.
Yeah.
So I love what you said that if your expectations are really down low,
Yeah.
it's already bad.
Yeah, you free yourself up. And yet people fight that so hard because we have this whole, attachment to high expectations, and we think that if our expectations aren't through the roof that nothing good is ever going to happen. I'm like, well, you can try it, but you'll probably get where you want to go faster if you lower your expectations. You just don't want to believe me. So, okay, try it your way.
Mm. Well, I love what you do in the world so much. I'm sure that when you crack people open to the possibilities that they can do creativity and even do it badly, that it expands what they can do in all aspects of their life.
Yeah, it goes well beyond any kind of creative pursuit. It
Yes.
really does. And there's no way that it can't do that, because as soon as you stop judging your creative work, you're going to stop judging everything else. And as soon
Ooh.
as you start having more fun with your creative work, you're going to start having more fun with everything else. I mean, it's all interconnected. So, you start just letting go in one area, you're going to start letting go in all the other areas. So, I always say, like, there are places where you want the rules to stay intact and you want to respect the rules, right? Like when I'm out driving, I want everyone to respect the traffic rules.
I'm with you.
If I'm having brain surgery or flying on a plane, I want the surgeon or the pilot to be pretty perfectionistic about what they're doing. But when
Yes.
they're off duty, I want them to go have fun and be able to relax and let go. Because that's better for them and it's better for us. And it's the same with everything we do. There are places where we need to respect all of that stuff. And there are places where we can say, you know what, that rule's kind of arbitrary. And I don't think that I really need to worry about that today. So I'm not gonna. But when I go get in my car, I'm gonna pay attention to the red light because that one's important. But you can really, learn how to get out of your own way and learn how to be nicer to yourself. Hey, that is huge. As soon as you are nicer to yourself, you're nicer to everybody else, and
Mhm.
you just learn how to have more fun and feel better and have more energy in your life. I mean, it it probably sounds too good to be true in many ways, but I've seen it happen.
Mm.
It's an amazing thing to watch because it just it's a literally life-changing thing. And it doesn't take, huge amounts of effort and, oh, I have to, do all of this hard work and tons of journaling and all of this other stuff. I mean, journaling's great, don't get me wrong, but like it doesn't have to be that hard. It's a 6-week course,
Yeah,
and
it's like
mostly we just let go and have fun.
6 weeks of having fun. Tell us more. Tell us how people can find you and find your course, and I'll put, of course, all this in the show notes so people can click on it.
Sure. So the course is at makebadartcourse.com.
Mhm.
So it's easy to find. And my podcast is Follow Your Curiosity, which is on all of the usual podcast apps. And I'll give you a link for that one too. And yeah, I mean, folks can find me on Substack. I have a newsletter on there called The Spark, where I write about lots of things, not just making bad art, though that one comes up relatively frequently these days. Um, and I have a website outside of the course site that's FY Curiosity for Follow Your Curiosity. So they can contact me on there too if they want to get in touch.
Well, Nancy, it's been lovely chatting with you, and I admire what you do so much. It is needed in the world we live in. There's a lot of stress
Yes, there is.
and there's a lot of loneliness. And
Yeah.
I bet people get out of both of those when they work with you.
Yeah, the community piece is really, really important because it's much easier to throw off all of this societal pressure to be perfect when you're not the only one doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it helps to be in a group of people who are doing the same thing rather than trying to fight the social media and the advertising and the stuff you hear at work and all of that all on your own. That can be really rough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
So
yeah.
thank you so much for what you do in the world. I really appreciate you. And thanks
Oh,
for
you're
being on
welcome.
today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Bye for now, everybody.